predicare, benedicere, predicare, laudare, we praise our Lord with our saints, benedicere, we lift our voice in song, predicare, we proclaim your word to the world, laudare, benedicere, predicare. Sent out to preach by Dominic, sent two by two to all the world, sent out to study the gospel of grace, to find new ways to preach.
For a seed to germinate, grow, and produce plants of fruit, it has to die first. The Bible says, "Blessed are those who die in the Lord from now on." Yes, says the Spirit, they will rest from their labor, for their deeds will follow them.
I am Sister Rudo Shungumatsika. I am the regional prioress of the Dominican Sisters in Zimbabwe. The Dominican Sisters came to Zimbabwe in 1891 and they've been working in Zimbabwe, ministering in Zimbabwe since then. And we've also moved to other parts of the world and to other countries. We have young sisters in formation. We have young finally professed sisters. We have elderly sisters. So we are a balanced congregation and a balanced community. In terms of statistics, we have 15 communities, we have 15 institutions, we are in education, we have hospitals, we have children's homes, and we also have the Lifelines Media House.
I'm Sister Ferreira and a member of the Dominican Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus since 1962 in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. We were quite a group of sisters coming from Streifeld in Germany. We were 10 in our group who came here to join the missionary work of the sisters who were already here, and of the Jesuits also, and of St. Dominic, of course, whose anniversary, 800th years anniversary of going to the Lord of his death, we celebrate this year, 2021.
Mainly what the Dominican sisters specifically are well known for is the education that they provided to a good number of our citizens here. The schools that they've built, and also in the health sector, they've been quite a good impact there from my own observation. Well, I say this because I used to be in Shishawasha Seminary as the rector there for quite some years, and I used to interact with them when they were in St. Dominic, Shishawasha.
So what really transpired from 1891 to present day? Only 3 days later, the sisters started nursing in a huge pole and dagger hut just opposite the Dominican convent in 4th Street. Thereafter, they introduced Dominican Convent School, one of the first academic institutions in the country.
My experiences as a student of the Dominican Convent, Harare, were very fulfilling and in many ways shaped me. The school system afforded a young woman coming from the townships her first real interaction with a multicultural, multiracial environment, superintended by the Dominican sisters who are the owners of the schools.
I've been with the Dominican family for a long, long time, more than 50 years of my life. I started off as a student at St. Martin's, which is a Dominican school, and I was there from grade 1 until grade 6, and then I left St. Martin's to go to the Dominican convent in Harare, and I was there studying from grade 7 until upper 6. I was one of the first black students at the Dominican convent in Harare. I think at the time that I was there were not more than 10 of us throughout the whole school. But what it also did for me was the school was very open in terms of integration. So it also helped me in terms of just taking people for who they are, that they're children of God. And I was able throughout my school life to grow up feeling comfortable with other girls who were from other cultures, other races, even other religions, because within my circle of friends, I had a friend who was Hindu, I had a friend who was a Muslim, and it made us respect each other and even want to learn and understand that the world is made up of different people who come from different cultures, different way of lives.
The spiritual growth that we received from the school, as well as the education, which was very key to what their work was in Zimbabwe, in Rhodesia, then Zimbabwe, was very impactful in terms of keeping us focused on studying. We were not distracted by the outside world when we were at both schools. I would remember that our social interaction was very encouraged to be with our schoolmates and others that we got to know along the path of school, our teachers and their families. When I matured, when I became an adult, I focused on social work. I think the work that they were doing to help the children who were on welfare at the time, we just hear that so-and-so is from welfare, but they were treated no differently from us that had parents and who were well looked after by parents who were working. And I think it left some impact on my mind because my choice of career came as no surprise. I decided to be a social worker, and I'm a qualified social worker right now.
In my opinion, they're a great sacrifice because largely they were coming from outside our country and of course subsequently recruited sisters within our country. Their huge sacrifice and their dedication from the perspective of a fairly young child, 5 years old when I started school, seemed extraordinarily disproportionate. But I think came more sharply into focus as I grew up and had a better understanding of service as inculcated within us, within the school walls, commitment, serving others, cultivating the good, a faith-based education, giving of one's time, of oneself, and at the same time preparing oneself to receive the very rich and broad education which was afforded us.
Since then, the Dominican Sisters schools continue to provide the best education in the country and beyond, as evidenced by further establishment of more schools in the coming years. In 1895, the Dominican Sisters moved to Bulawayo, where they established a Dominican convent school.
I came to know of the Dominican Sisters when I was here in school from 1984 to 1989. This is where I did my high school. What I learned when I was here up to now, they instilled veritas. Veritas means truth. And from the time I was here, even with Amanda, my colleague, we were taught to stand by truth, and we've always been standing by veritas. I think the sisters were so good at that time in even developing our own personal lives.
I'm Mr. Moyo from Dominican Convent, Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. I've been working here for about 16 years now as a teacher and a member of the community. You see, one of our pillars is community. So we work together, we pray together, we share quite a lot of things as a family. The Dominican sisters, since I have known, have actually carried out a lot in terms of spiritual development and enhancement and bringing other people to God.
As the Dominican sisters had that impact on us, we were taught to have a prayerful life. We had good standards of education. They taught us how to study. I had a good impact of it. Yes, maybe we were scared in our days, scared of religious people because they seemed very strict in those days when we were here at school. But now we interact with them much more and it's more free and easy. So now we are at home here.
Very much. The major impact, that's the reason why we've maintained, even as a former convent girl, I came back. The impact was very strong. The core values and the pillars actually determine your way of life. It is a lifestyle. The whole aim of the Dominican life is to awaken the spirit. And when you awaken the spirit, you must come forth and spread through thought, word and action. You are supposed to be the living gospel that is supposed to go out. And from a very small young age, we were taught we must be the little light. We used to be always taught that shine, Jesus, shine. And we used to be taught that you like this candle, that you must be the light in the dark. Your spirit must come forth based on a very prayerful life. Prayer is the core integral part of your being.
I enjoyed my teaching at the convent. I also learned a lot from the convent. I had been teaching in the government schools, but I found convent different. I became a Dominican associate because of prayer and also practicing Dominican St. Dominic's ways. I wanted to be close to whatever he did when he was still alive, though it's years ago.
We learned from a very young age that people matter and that our actions have consequences. We also learned responsibility, even from KG1, that there are people less fortunate than us and that we must take care of them somehow. And we also learned that the central thing in our lives is prayer. We started and finished our school morning with a prayer. Unlike other teachers, unlike lay teachers, the sisters don't have a sell-by date. The sisters carry on and on and on. One only has to think of Sister Loyola, who at 100 was still giving violin lessons. Sisters are dedicated to education, and they need to carry on educating in the full sense of the word, not just a book in front of you, and they're very good at that.
My name is Renuka Jogi. I am Hindu, and so I have been brought up with Hinduism, and I married my late husband was Muslim, so I was introduced to the Islamic way of life as well from him. But I had discovered that the Catholic way of looking at life was similar to our way as well, and the doctrines that were impressed on to me were also similar to my religions, but I felt a certain love being at the school, and I felt that I was part of a family where they cared. I never saw any distinction. I never saw any barriers as such, or they didn't treat me differently from any other members of the staff. In fact, when I came here, I think I might have been one of the first non-white staff here.
I'm Di Harrower, a teacher who worked with the Dominicans for 39 years and loved it. I had 13 years in Bulawayo and 26 years in Harare, and it was a very good experience all round. Two sisters that I remember in particular were Sister Catherine, who was the headmistress in Bulawayo when I went there, and Sister Gundala, who was the headmistress in Harare when I came to the Harare convent. Well, I came to Bulawayo convent as a fed-up Presbyterian, and with a lot of questions that I wanted answered. Sister Catherine not only listened, she argued back. I had to become a Catholic, which I did with great joy, and I've been happy in it ever since.
After the Jesuits established Chishawasha Mission, the Dominican sisters began teaching African girls in 1898. This was the beginning of education for African girls in this country, as the Jesuits had already begun teaching boys there. This marked the establishment of St. Dominic Chishawasha Secondary School, a step towards promoting, empowering, and equipping the girl child who was then sidelined.
I went to secondary school at Chishawasha Secondary School, and it transformed to St. Dominic Secondary School when we were in Form 2. And that meant we're now completely under the care of the Dominican sisters. I worked with them as a head girl. I want to start from there. As a head girl during the period 1970 to 1971. They train you to be a leader. And as a head girl, they would say you have your own type of management of the prefecture. You have your own meetings. And after that, would then take the issues with my vice to the school head, who was then a sister at that time. The upbringing that they gave us gave me the desire also to become a teacher and to work for others. Teaching, yes, is like a calling. It's not a high fee paying job. It's merely service to the children that you have. And for me, service to the girls in Zimbabwe meant quite a lot, because the girls in Zimbabwe during our time were not really taken care of as far as education was concerned. And my getting there as a mathematics teacher also gave them a model that it can be done by girls.
As a parent, I also learned that if you want to have the whole development of a girl, St. Dominic's does that. That's why I insisted that all my children, they would go, say, to an A school for primary education. When it comes to secondary education from Form 1 to Form 4, it had to be St. Dominic's. Thereafter, they can get lost wherever they want to, but they would have been enculturated in the culture which I believed in. That's for my children. As for me, they also sealed my marriage, if I may put it that way. My wife was not Catholic when we got married. She was an Anglican. And when we got married, she became a Catholic. And she taught at St. Dominic's as well. And during the 2 years we were at St. Dominic's, the interaction with the nuns really sealed our married life. The sisters would give you even some private lessons on how to be an effective mother, how to be an effective father, and they would treat you like you are already part of them. And during the times when I was working with them as chairman of various committees, I was given some, what I would call some private training from the sisters as to how they wanted leadership within their organizations done. And it also helped me to run my own companies. I run 2 companies at the moment, one real estate company and the other one an insurance broking firm. I apply quite some principles which I got from the nuns.
I interacted with the Dominican sisters, first of all as a small boy at the Kokomere Mission, where the Dominican sisters were teaching in the primary school. I was taught by Dominican sisters from standard 4 up to standard 6. During that time, I still remember there is a sister, a Dominican sister, the late Epifania Schneider, who unfortunately was murdered at Musami in 1977 during the liberation struggle. She taught me in standard 6, and her influence on my character will never be forgotten. The other sisters whom I still remember were mostly in charge, as far as the Africans were concerned. They were in charge of the home craft, or the so-called, now the domestic science they call it, at the mission. And here they had a great influence on the girl child. I don't want to call it girl child as such, but women, African women. They started first of all with education of African women in domestic science. Even, adult women, and also teaching of catechism.
In the uprisings of the 1890s, and through illnesses such as malaria fever, as well as through accidents, some children had lost both their parents and were left homeless. The Dominicans realized the need to take care of such children through the establishment of children's homes.
Well, we are actually a very old children's home, one of the first ones in the country, I guess. We were registered as a social welfare organization in 1914. Initially, there was a need for, it was white children then, whose parents had died or what, to take care of. Then, over the years, colored children came in, and when I came, we had half colored children and half black children.
I grew up at Emerald Children's Home. The nuns brought me up. They took me in, provided for me, gave me accommodation, sent me to school, and also taught me how to be a young woman. Growing up at the home in the beginning was very difficult. As a child, no one chooses to leave their parent. It was very difficult, but I'm very grateful to the nuns and the staff for the help they gave me.
Sometimes when you're being told that you're going to a children's home, you would assume the worst because you are in an institution, as they call it. But for me, Emerald U turned out to be a proper family setup where, if you were sick, you would go to sister and you'd be able to go to the sick room. Mama Margaret was also there for us. She was in charge of the seniors. So it was really a family setup. I really loved it.
We have quite a number of success stories. We have nurses, we have teachers, we have lawyers, we have good mothers, children who have, who are doing well in their family life. And I think this is something we are happy about.
In the 1920s, colored and Indian children were caught between a rock and a hard surface. They could not be enrolled either at schools meant for black children or those meant for whites, as they were neither black nor white. Again, the Dominican sisters realized the need to cater for the educational needs for such segregated children. So in 1924, an opportunity arose to make this plan possible. A farm was purchased and St. John's was established.
I worked with the Dominican sisters for 4 decades, which is quite a long time. And all this time, I must say I enjoyed every minute, every hour working with the Dominican sisters. The Dominican sisters are really positive on the education of the child. They want to provide a holistic education which will, in the end, produce a total person that is academically, spiritually, socially, morally, and physically. The students who come from the Dominican schools, especially St. John's, I have a lot of things to say about St. John's. We have a lot of people in the diaspora or in the country whom we can call big and outstanding because of the Dominican sisters.
I'm a product of the product in terms of Dominican sisters. I am who I am largely because of that foundation that was set out by the Dominicans. I remember fondly Sister Rosina Spaninga in particular. She was the headmistress of our school, and when she became my maths teacher, I was so keen to impress her that my grades just went up in order to impress the headmistress. And then ultimately I became a prefect, I became a head boy, you know, all as a consequence of that influence. They were mothers to me. And so I was always out to impress them. And I think that that had a phenomenal impact, you know, in my own life.
We had such a profound system at St. John's. It was a boarding school, boarders and day scholars. And as a boarder, we were mandated to attend Mass in the morning, not just attend Mass, but share in this reading of the Word of God. My eloquence also became better because we were then given duties to read the Word of God during Mass. And I was scared initially, but then I became so eloquent and I liked to read in public places or in masses because of the role that they played in pushing us to read the Word of God. I became a musician because of the Dominican sisters. I learned how to play the guitar from Sister Elizabeth Wade-King. She came to St. John's and she introduced the guitar club. And I was one of the fortunate ones to start this club. I was picked when I was in Form 2. And I improved and I became a better guitar player, even all the way to Form 4.
They encouraged my independence. I got the Leadership Cup 1 year. I was a prefect. So they saw those things and they worked with them and they helped us to build on that, to become who we are today.
It's amazing how we get to appreciate something a lot later in life. But when I look back at what they were creating, in 1971, in the 70s, it was Rhodesia. Education was segregated according to race, and they actually opened up the school at St. Martin's to children from all races, all walks in life. I used to travel from a township called Mufakose to attend education at St. Martin's, and it was just very different from what the rest of the country was at the time. It was, they created an oasis of racial tolerance by opening up and providing non-racial education. It provided an oasis of tolerance and understanding for me at a very early stage in my life. What I got from St. Martin's as well as St. John's Emerald Hill, I didn't just get quality education, technical training and education in the fundamental subjects, academic subject. I also got a very, very good grounding in terms of the spiritual side of my life and just being an upright individual.
When I joined the Dominican Sisters in 1978, I was the only black teacher at that school. And the community started really cherishing that. Oh, we have a black teacher at this school. And these sisters really respected me, and I also respect them. And as a result, the students also respected me a lot. They learned a lot from me. I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from the Dominican sisters.
In 1944, the Dominican sisters founded their own first Zimbabwean Dominican mission, Loreto, in Slovenia. There are so many women and men who went through this place, Loreto, and I'm sure they've carried also the torch of the faith that has been imparted to them in this place.
The Dominican nuns cemented honesty in me. They cemented standing up for the truth and also speaking out in situations where you can say where the Beatitudes somewhat come up. I feel I have to speak up for the downtrodden, be it a work situation and be it a prayer group. I find myself speaking up.
What I appreciated a lot was these German sisters were very neat and organized and very particular about everything that we did. It had to be perfect. So, but we had problems fitting in, living up to their standards. However, they made sure that we did what they said.
The other thing that happened because of my exposure to the Dominican ethos was how to carry myself, one as a woman, as a girl, and as a human being. As a woman, you might find it funny. They were very strict on how you carry yourself, deportment. Walking is not just throwing one leg in front of the other. You had to walk like a woman.
One of the reasons why I like Loreto very much is particularly for our congregation. If we look at it, we get several sisters of our local sisters come from Loreto, starting from Sister Bernadette, myself. We studied here in Loreto. So my vocation in some way was actualized here in Loreto. Although I had started to feel this even before I came here, but the time when I really made my mind up and said, I'm going, was from here. There is no other place, no school, convent has produced as many vocations for our congregation as Loreto has. At this mission, the Dominican sisters saw the importance of educating children who had difficulties or challenges with hearing and talking. Thus, the deaf child had his or her first opportunity to have a formal education in Zimbabwe. However, the school for the deaf was later moved to Emerald Hill in Harare due to the ravages of war.
We normally focus on vocational training, where we teach them the practical subjects which will help them to do some work and sell some articles. And some of these subjects include cabinet making, garment construction, art, food and nutrition, clothing and textile, and bakery.
My name is Agnes Chindimba. It has been a long time since I have known the Dominican sisters. Ever since I came here at Emerald Hill, the sisters have been there. And I've seen other sisters coming there and others coming and going and learning together for quite a long time. I've been here and I've known them because they have taught us, and they have been doing very wonderful work here in supporting the deaf people. And other deaf people have started small, but right now they have built a school for the deaf for us here. So it has been a long time. When I was very young, I was worried that how do the deaf people, what will be their future like? But it was important that I learned that I can do anything. If you work hard and do what we were taught here at Emerald School, I passed to Form 4 and I did my Form 6. The sisters would go to school together and they would share some information, and they accepted me as a deaf. And they helped me to work hard. They taught me value. And they taught me that all the people who are deaf, you must value yourself and you must value God. At home, you must go to church. Whether you are deaf, you must go to church and worship God and come to school, because the church there will be there. They will be helping us. The sisters will help us to know God, and they will help us to know everything. So I grew up knowing what I'm supposed to do and what I'm not supposed to do. And they trained us, the sisters trained us very well.
I must confess that it has really impacted in the society, because we actually have students leaving the school and furthering their education and also finding employment. For example, here at Emerald Hill, we have 5 of our deaf teachers. We have been trained here and they came back to teach at Emerald Hill.
I came here at Emerald Hill in 1983. And then I finished my school and went to the university. Now I'm teaching here, working here as a teacher. I teach carpentry. It has been very good to work with the sisters. My father was poor because when I was here, I was the second born in the family. and then as a deaf, and then all the other children, 6 of us, we all learned to hear. It was very difficult in our life because my father didn't have money, but then all of us, the sisters helped us so that we could go to school here at Emerald Hill, and as well they gave us clothes, they gave us accommodation, shoes, and when the schools closed, they would give us food to go and eat at home, and then when schools opened, they would give us blankets, they would give us anything, everything. They were very supportive.
Emerald Hill School for the Deaf is the only school in the country which offers a deaf child a complete curriculum from ECD, primary to secondary education.
After the establishment of St. John's Secondary School for the colored and Indian children, those who were supposed to go for primary school had nowhere to be enrolled. Again, the Dominican sisters had to fill that gap through establishment of Martindale in 1945. However, the need for another multiracial school which would cater for the increased population led to the establishment of St. Martin's Convent School in 1962.
St. Martin's Convent School was established way back in the 50s and mainly to address the imbalance that was there in our schools. We had schools that were catering for the African child, and we had schools that were catering for the white community. But then the sisters realized we needed to have another school because it was the time when they were not allowed to mix races and on ethnic grounds. So we had to establish a school mainly for the colored community, and St. Martin's was established to address that. And it was a feeder school for our St. John's High School, which is in Avondale. The school, when it was built, it was mainly just for a small communities, therefore it was a one-stream school. But the community has since developed and grown. There are so many people around, and therefore we felt the need to bring about change within the community around us. And therefore we went into the drive to try and have a two-stream school. We are really grateful that we have somehow managed to get this dream to be a reality this far. The community is very appreciative of the education that we are offering, and we have so many students who are on our waiting list desiring to come to join St. Martin's Convent School.
In 2010, a new school named after the first superior in the Zambezi mission, Mother Patrick, was built for the Archdiocese of Harare in a new township, Mainway Meadows, at the request of the Archbishop.
When I came to Harare, and we wanted to start a school now at Mainway Meadows, I immediately thought of the Dominican sisters with that background that I had when I was in Chishawasha. So I approached them with that background that I had from Chishawasha. And thank God they said, if you build a school and so forth, we are prepared to come in and help, assist. So that is what afterwards we had to fundraise and make sure that the school is built. And it was at that juncture when they were about to move in that they asked me, would you mind if we were to name the school after Mother Patrick, who is so dear to us? And I said, I don't mind. So that's why now it's called Mother Patrick Convent School. So that's why I know their contribution there very much, and then I said in the health sector. And one of the things that I think I admire with them in this regard is that even other places before where they started, the schools, they were prepared to, afterwards, to hand over even to local congregations. You have Regina Mundi now in Gweru. It was in the hands of the Dominican sisters before. You have the one in Mtare. This is St. Dominic. It was also, they did the same. We have some here in Harare with an experience of Martindale. It used to be in the hands of the Dominican sisters, and they're prepared to hand over to the Archdiocese. So these are some of the things that I admire them, that they have that spirit also. That they are not clinging to institutions because they're the ones who build, but they realize that they can kind of hand over to others while they go on doing other things and so forth in the same line. So I think that for that I admire them quite a lot.
Apart from education, the sisters saw the great needs in medical work as a vehicle of showing God's mercy and love in practice. Hospitals and clinics were started with Musami and Mutoko in 1932, Gokomere in 1933, Silvira Mission in 1934, St. Joseph's Mission Clinic in Hama in 1936, which later became St. Teresa's Hospital in 1957, Driefontein Hospital in 1949, and Driefontein Sanatorium for Tuberculosis in 1961, St. Albert's Mission Hospital in 1963, and Muonde Hospital in Driefontein 1963.
I'm Sister Albertina Bonga. I'm the local responsible authority for this place. St. Teresa's Hospital was started in 1957, and in 1963 the School of Nursing was opened, which was training the state-certified nurses, SCNs. The sisters have made quite a big impact in the area. In the 1990s, the sisters also started the home-based care, because that's when we had a lot of HIV patients. They were visiting the patients around, they were treating them at home, they were bringing them to the hospital for treatment, and for the orphans who were left by those HIV mothers and fathers were taken over by the sisters by looking after them, giving them food, paying school fees for them.
That program impacted the community in Chirumanzu to an extent that it's known across the district, the province, and possibly the nation, where the Dominican sisters actually give a hand to the education of all the orphans that were left in the country because of the HIV pandemic. Then they are taking these orphans up to tertiary education, from primary to tertiary education, which is a great thing indeed. And today we boast of several professions across the country that were bred by the Dominican sisters through their assistance.
During those years of HIV, the sisters helped the people who were affected and infected to start support groups where they would have bun making, that's baking, they would have nutritional gardens, they would also have sewing projects, and quite a lot of them have been helped. And at the moment we are having a home plan project where we are building for the vulnerable and the orphans. We have also some play toilets which have been built for many of them for good sanitation, because quite a number of our people, they were using the bush system.
I am Alexander Chazolachi. I am the Senior Nursing Officer, grade 3 for St. Teresa's Hospital. I came to St. Teresa's Hospital in 1977 to train as a medical assistant. I was in the first group of male nurses to train at St. Teresa's, and we were 3 boys.
As an individual, I benefited a lot from the Dominican sisters. They groomed me spiritually, physically, and socially. And then they taught me quite a number of good health habits. Like when we were at Loreto, we were really told how to live as a family, as a one family. We're taught how to help each other, how to share, and how to love one another.
When I was groomed here, I was taught to react like I was a Dominican, because the help which they gave to people sometimes went through my hands. And then whenever I saw people in need, I would refer them to people whom I thought could help. And through that way, I sort of worked like I was part of the Dominican congregation as such.
My first encounter in nursing was at St. Teresa Dominican Hospital as a medical assistant, and I qualified in May 78. Looking at the Dominicans, they had a lot of work that they were doing here. This community was a little bit backward. We had these chronic illnesses, the typhoids and the like. Sister Patricia came in to have a group of people to give people safe water and to build toilets. Because basically these communicable diseases were coming from an atmosphere of poor sanitation and poor water supply. I remember we had an old ambulance. The Dominican sisters were doing a lot of outreach in immunizations. We were moving with this old ambulance to immunize children. And that lessened the burden on childhood illnesses.
In 1989, the Dominican sisters left Silvera Mission Hospital. And at the same time, they took over the St. Joseph's TB Hospital in Mutare.
The hospital was opened in 1957 as a TB infectious hospital. In 2010, St. Joseph was changed to General Hospital by the Ministry of Health and Child Welfare.
The hospital has been undergoing transformation from a TB hospital to a general hospital, and this transformation has been taking place between 2010 and 2015. And the progress so far has been exciting and encouraging, and this is actually reflected by the statistics, where we are seeing that there is an increase in the patient flow, and on average in a month the cumulative outpatient attendances is around 4,500 to about 6,000. Our catchment area is mainly the urban setup. We are servicing Ward 17, which comprises of Chikanga, Hope House, and part of Dangamvura. And we also have some patients who come from Sakuba. And we are looking at a population of around 27,000 people. And most of these people are within the active or the reproductive group, which comprise about 50 to 60% of the total.
Apart from the academic and health sectors, the Dominican sisters were also involved in the building up of the local church in Zimbabwe through formation of local religious congregations, such as the LCBLs and the SJI sisters.
We cannot talk of the LCBO sisters leaving the Dominicans behind. When the local congregation was founded, the LCBO sisters, Bishop Chichester asked the Dominican sisters to train the newly founded congregation at Makumbi. Sister Demiset was appointed as Nov's mistress
it was on her that the responsibility of the whole spirit of the new congregation rested for about 30 years. We are very happy as a congregation now through their spirit and inspiration. Our congregation is growing and we are receiving new members.
I have known the Dominican sisters since 1973 when I went to Makumbi for my secondary school education. Whatever Mother Deme said imparted to the sisters, particularly the first group. I had the opportunity to know 11 of the pioneer sisters of our congregation. They were prayerful women, hardworking, like Mother Deme said, very committed to their religious life, and they loved the children. And for that, I am very grateful. And I can say that those were women who would say they grew up gracefully to old age because they knew what they were doing, and they were people who were imparting values of the kingdom of God to people.
We as SJI sisters were reared and nurtured by our mothers, who are the Dominican Sisters of the Sacred Heart. They journeyed with us for quite some time, from 1950 up to 1971, when we had our own administration, the local administration. And the people whom we remember most are Mother Teresina, who was the novice mistress, and Mother Chrysostoma, who was asked to lead the congregation as the Superior General. So she is our first Superior General.
And the training, that's why we really appreciate the Dominican sisters. Mother Teresina and Mother Chrysostoma, they worked to try and train these people who had a different culture from them, but they had to give them all the manners, table manners, social etiquette, to train them to work. All the skills we have really in our congregation, it all stems from the Dominican sisters. They really put their soul into that. They were Dominicans, but then when they were living with us, they didn't show that the different charism. They were really among us. If we look at Mother Teresina was teaching the candidates, the postulants, and being the novice mistress. And Mother Chrysostoma was the mother. And you know what a mother does to train? And she really loved the candidates. Let's just remember, say, no, child, if you did something, she would cry. No, child, what did you? When she corrected you, you didn't feel that. You really felt your mother was really correcting you. And you find you working in the fowl run with their habits, the old ones, where they would take the pin at the back there, and I would look at her and say, personally, I didn't feel I was different from them looking at the color. I never had that thinking that we are different, just looking at a mother helping us, correcting us. And they really wanted us to be able to stand on our own.
And I must say, we are also very much attached to the Dominican sisters. When we go into in their communities, we don't feel lost. We feel so much at happy, so much at home, in the Dominican communities. Because what they've imparted into us is what they live. So we really feel at home. And they journeyed with us for quite some time, even coming to facilitate our chapters afterwards. Dominicans, SJI sisters are one. And at one point, one of the sisters whom I was working with, she said, well, I think we did a better job with you SJI sisters. Whatever that meant, I don't know, but it really elevated my spirits to say, well, they did a better job because they didn't start with us. They started with other congregations, but she really emphasized to say, well, we did a better job with you because of experience also.
The task of evangelization is always a continuous one, which needs to adapt to the signs of the times. The Dominican sisters realized the need to extensively evangelize in their mission through media work. Thus, in 2003, a media arm was created so that it could complement the education and health evangelization parameters. And so Lifelines was born.
I'm Gift Mambipiri, a friend of the Dominican sisters here in Zimbabwe, and I've known and worked with Lifelines for the past 15 years. I would say most Zimbabweans, Catholics and non-Catholics, grew up on a staple diet each morning of morning devotions on TV, thanks to the Dominican sisters. And through those sessions, they would inspire or awaken the nation each morning, awaken the spirituality as we thanked our gods for a wonderful night and wishes for the coming day. In that way, the media apostolate of the Dominican sisters became well known more than any other apostolate in the church then, because our generation consumes information and media more through sound and image, and their presence on TV each morning inspired and taught every other Zimbabwean that they are nuns and their Dominican sisters working for the common good in the country. The Dominican sisters have always played a pioneering role in terms of new evangelization models within the church. It was also through Lifelines and the Dominican sisters that the church took a pioneering role in terms of recording live music that has been shared, played in many homes as we go. The Dominican sisters again also took a leading role in terms of giving the Catholic Church in Zimbabwe a homegrown hymn book, which contains most of the Catholic songs that are used in the country. In the last couple of months, when we have been under the pandemic, you could see people, especially on Sunday mornings or so, searching and posting comments on the Dominican sisters pages, asking information about masses or where to get church services that have been happening around. So to that extent, I think the Dominican sisters have played their part in terms of evangelizing the common man through media. However, there's more that could be done in terms of capitalizing or using the media to reach out to the common man. And the expectation, once again, is on the Dominican sisters to take a leading role, just as they've pioneered in most of the media works that have happened in the country. I would say it's high time that the sisters come together again and discuss about having a Catholic TV station, for example. And these TV stations are popular in many parts of the country. The common man in the country today is yearning for that niche, for that space, for that TV station that speaks to them in the comfort of their home. Like I mentioned before, if you observe around, the average citizen today consumes information through image and sound. And the latest and most effective way of evangelizing today is through TV, through radio, through social media. And the Dominican sisters can do us and themselves a huge favor if they are to move in that direction.
After all the good work which the Dominican sisters have done in Zimbabwe and beyond, there is always room for growth and improvement for their continued growth. And it is important to keep looking at the signs of the times and asking what is the Lord saying to us at this moment, and responding positively.
I have been working with the Dominican sisters for a couple of decades. I work with them in terms of recruiting lay people, in terms of looking after the conditions of service of those lay people. Recruitment at times with the sisters is done via their hearts. They are very, very special people because they do not intervene all sorts of bad things about people. They are there to help. But I often tell them that you don't just employ for the sake of employing, but you employ because there is a requirement for that job. And also you don't just pay a wage or a salary. You pay a wage or salary in terms of what is required by the laws of Zimbabwe. I find at times we are not at one because they tend to think I'm being too strict. But we have fallen into trouble in some other situations where we've had to pay monies in excess of what should have been paid in the first place because they would not have followed the laws. As we work together, they are now beginning to understand and appreciate the laws of Zimbabwe and how to interact and look after their employees. I must say, I have done sessions, workshops with them where we have gone through the labor laws, where we have gone through how to look after employees. I'm glad that problems within the labor force or within the arena where workers are employed has greatly improved. I thank them for following what we've done, and I also thank them for appreciating the work that I do for them.
Our time is over in the sense of doing the practical things of teaching and nursing and so on. Our task now as religious or priests, whatever, is much more the life in the spirit, helping people to develop their life in the spirit so they become better people, not just better doctors or better teachers or high academic degrees and so on, but their humanity is.
Can they still do more? I think they can. There's always room to do more in the vineyard of the Lord. I think that aspect of missionary could be broadened to include real pastoral involvement, pastoral presence where they are, so that they don't limit themselves very much to schools, to institutions.
What I feel now at the moment is that they've moved away from pastoral work, which they taught us. So I think they should go back to it.
We're talking about the pastoral engagement, evangelization. And we know that in this period in which we are, one strong way of doing this, effective way of doing evangelization is through the media. Without media these days, we are not going very far. Look now, even we are talking about the COVID-19 that has restricted so many activities in parishes. And now people are resorting to social media. And I think that could be one way, really, I think, where you can broaden that and perfect it and make sure that even there are more of the members of the congregation who can take up that challenge, that ministry through the media. I think it will be a great contribution to the local church, a great contribution.